Has hip hop fallen off commercially? It seems that it has. What is going on and what can we learn from it? As a music journalist, I have some insights behind the scenes, as well as analysis of what is going on in the landscape of hip hop and why it seems like the genre, for the first time in its history, is actually getting smaller. Let's get into it. It wasn't that long ago where hip hop was crowned the biggest genre, overtaking rock music. But that was over. It looks like now hip hop really is in this really uncertain place. So, Billboard ran this article this week saying for the first time since 1990, so for a lot of you, you might not have even been born then. And I know me, I was like in elementary school. So, for the first time in over 30 years, a hip hop record has not been in the top 40 of the Billboard Hot 100. For those of you who don't know, the Hot 100 is basically like the major chart for singles and Billboard. This is something that goes cross genre. So for a rap artist who might, let's say, appear on the hot rap chart or things like that, they want to be on the Hot 100 because it basically means you have like a crossover record, what used to be called like a mainstream record. This is something that is an undeniable hit that crosses formats. And now that Kendrick and SZA's Luther is no longer in the top 40, there's no hip hop. And I can say that I'm somebody who follows the Billboard charts every week. I've been doing it since I was a kid. I know, kind of random, but I always wanted to work in the music business. And I've been seeing that rap just has no place in the Hot 100. I'm seeing pop doing great. I'm seeing country doing great, reggaeton, K-pop, like every other genre but hip hop. And if it is a rap record, it tends to be the heavy hitters. Kendrick, Drake, Tyler the Creator, basically the 1% of the genre. And I think that's the first issue that I see what's going on in the hip hop industry. We don't have a lot of young, fresh blood in the game. I often say this, I put this on social media all the time. After the top three, like the big three, Kendrick, Drake, Cole, you could debate that in the comments. Who's next up? And there would always be this very uncertain pause. Is it Tyler? Is it Travis? Like, who's really next up? And if we're going to be honest, even Tyler and Travis, they've been in the game for well over a decade apiece. And for a genre to be dynamic and to be growing, you need new people. I'm not saying it has to be a young 17-year-old who's working on their next Illmatic, but we kind of need that energy. And that's not to say that these artists don't exist. It's who's really being amplified. And I'm going to talk about that a little later in this video. But overall, the biggest artists have just been around a long time. They're closer to, OGs or veterans than they are newbies. And I think for a genre to be dynamic, for it to constantly be growing, we just need new names and new fresh blood. And we haven't had that in a very long time. Now, going back to my point about what's actually being amplified, this is where the industry has to take some accountability. So I can tell you as a music journalist, somebody who's been in this game for, almost 20 years at this point, behind the scenes right now, there is truly a dearth of hip hop executives. What do I mean by that? There was a time, especially in the mid to late 90s, early 2000s, where people from hip hop, whether it was DJs, producers, sometimes even former artists, they became executives and they were the ones signing artists, developing artists. And because of who they were, their connection to hip hop culture and rap music, as well as just them having that empathy of what an artist goes through, they were able to really sign and develop some very exciting artists. At the end of the day, somebody like Jay-Z was very much, I would say, discovered by someone like a DJ Clark Kent. Because Clark Kent was a DJ, a producer, and at the time also an A&R at Atlantic Records, he was the one who kind of convinced Jay-Z, meet Dame and you need to go on this professional journey of being a rapper. And he was very instrumental in those early days. Similarly, you fast forward to someone like DMX, Irv Gotti, again, former DJ turned producer, who's actually Jay-Z's DJ back in the day. A lot of people don't know. Irv was very instrumental in getting DMX signed to Def Jam and then very much being with him, helping produce It's Dark and Hell is Hot, all the way down to like vocal producing him on Get At Me Dog, which was his first single. So just imagine the level of love and attention and care of these executives. And I'm going to be honest, we just don't have that anymore. I'm sure a lot of you have seen in the headlines, every major label has done layoffs, distributors, like everyone is just doing layoffs. And although we kind of focus on those in the entry level, I can say very honestly, a lot of like veterans I know, people who have 15, 20, 25 years in the game, they don't have a job anymore. So you got to wonder who's in these buildings now, who's doing the signing, who's doing the developing, if there is any development. And we're going to get into that next. This is what you're going to get. People who don't know hip hop, they don't love rappy music in a very sort of visceral way. Why would they care? And I think that element, having executives who actually love hip hop and actually care, they want to see the genre grow, they want to sign the next great rapper. I think that's so important in our next generation of executives. And I'm sure there are some outliers out there who are doing that, so shout outs to them. But from the conversations I have with people at record labels or distribution companies, the first thing they look at is metrics. They want to know, have you already gone viral, specifically on TikTok or YouTube or Instagram? Those numbers matter more than can you rap. And I think that's a problem because you're going to end up having a whole class of artists who can't rap calling themselves rappers. And if you don't see kind of where that's going to be a slippery slope and an issue, I don't know what to say to you. And I think that's what happened. A whole generation of artists was really signed off the algorithm. It wasn't about, can you rap? Can you freestyle? Can you hold your own in a cypher? Can you make a record, like start to finish, an actual record that has longevity before this like week or this month? That's really a question. And I think the people doing a lot of the signing just don't think of it through that lens anymore. It's all about a volume business. You're signing like a bunch of artists and hoping that a few of them have a viral hit, and then that justifies the cost. The other part is artist development. It just doesn't exist anymore. Nowadays, a new artist or an independent artist is expected to do all that work on their own. So their team, their manager, their mans in them, their assistant, their whomever, you guys need to do everything. You need to be an A&R, you need to be a marketer, you need to do publicity, you need to know content creation and be a social media mastermind. All of this stuff falls on the artist and their team. And quite frankly, it's just too much. We're supposed to be looking at you as a musician. You know how to rap, you know how to put together songs, you know how to perform, not all of these other functions, which used to be taken on by other teams, other professionals. So we're just asking artists to do so much more. And some may argue, well, yeah, Sowmya, but they get the bag. You sign to a label, you sign to a distributor, you get your advance, and what you do with that money is on you. Maybe you should hire a publicist or a choreographer or a music director or a producer. Like, that's on you. But one, not everyone gets these huge bags that you read about in the headlines. And also just that knowledge. We're expecting artists, managers, their teams to have all of this inherent institutional knowledge. Where are they supposed to get that from? And I think that's also a misnomer. People think I signed to the big label or to the big distributor, I'm going to be taken care of. But at the end of the day, all of this work, this development, the creativity, the aesthetics, all on top of the music, that's your job. And I think honestly, for most artists, it just isn't going to work. And we see that with the records. You have artists who are amazing at visuals, they're great at playing the media and staying in the headlines, but the records aren't good. In order to have a good record, you need to have that musicality, that talent. Sometimes it's in the artist, but oftentimes that's in a producer, not a beat maker, an actual producer. That's in people who understand music. They understand what it takes to make a great record. And I think nowadays, more than ever, we think you can outsource that to AI or you can outsource that to the algorithm or social media. And it's just not the case. The other thing that we have to talk about is hip hop media. There was a time when your favorite magazine or radio personality or TV show, they were the ones who were gatekeepers, they were curating artists, and oftentimes they were the introduction of an artist to the industry or to fans. But let's be honest, there's more hip hop podcasts and platforms than ever. But why then is there not new artists pushing through the noise? Because so many of these platforms, they too have to deal with the algorithm. So they become drama channels. It's all about gossip and scandal. A big chunk of them are just really nostalgia channels, which in and of itself isn't bad, but how is that going to get excitement for a newer artist if everyone being interviewed is an OG, although it's very entertaining and I personally, find it incredibly valuable, where are the platforms for the new artists? And I feel so many of them are going to streamers or to these other places that the music doesn't matter. It's like a bunch of kids sitting in a room, like jumping up and down and dancing, which is cool. But as an artist, I'm trying to push like my art. I'm trying to be taken seriously as an artist and not just as clickbait or as some content that you quickly like scroll through when you're on your phone. It goes back to just valuing the art. And I feel like for artists nowadays, especially in hip hop, there's not that many platforms that they can really go to, tell their story in an in-depth way, play their music, have their music being discussed and analyzed and dissected and respected. And that's also a problem. Because as a fan, if I'm viewing you and your music as intrinsically disposable, what's my investment in you? Absolutely nothing. So, what does this all mean? Should we all just be depressed as hip hop fans? Like it's over? We had a good 50 plus year run and now we're just, retiring? I don't think so. I always feel like sometimes things have to sort of, be destroyed and rebuilt. So right now is a time when the commercialism of hip hop, meaning hip hop's influence in fashion and culture, TV, film, like all these other places is probably the highest it's ever been. Certain artists, especially the 1%, are making way more money than they've ever made before. But as a genre, as a culture, I think people are hungry for that next real artist. I like to joke, he can't just be on Kendrick's shoulders. Like, he's done a great job over this last, 2 years, and shout outs to him. But it can't just fall on him. It also can't fall on the OG rappers either. Somebody like the Clips had a great album, but if you're expecting Pusha T and Malice to kind of hold the entire genre, that's not fair either. We constantly need to see a balance. We need to see those established artists, the OGs, the superstars who can do stadiums, but also where are those young gunners, people who love rap, they respect it, and they want to be rappers. They don't want to be called rock stars. They don't want to be the ones who, the minute they get put on, they like distance themselves from hip hop. I think you know who I'm talking about. They're not the ones who are just using music as a way to secure bags in other rooms. They really respect hip hop. They want to be seen as artists. They respect those that came before them. And they really see this as a privilege and an honor to pick up the mic. I think those are the kind of artists we want to see. We want to see generational talent, not just like the viral TikTok moment or something that sort of, sparks a meme or a quick conversation. People are hungry for something that's real, that's quality, that has some soul to it. I think, with the passing of D'Angelo recently, that was just a reminder how somebody who only put out 3 albums really changed the world. And you see the way people have such a visceral response to his passing because of the musicianship and the soul. And I think that's what hip hop needs. We need a group of young people, young men, young women who want to do something different. Everyone doesn't need to look alike. Everyone doesn't need to work with like the same producer or go into YouTube and type like Metro Booming type beat or Conductor Williams type beat. Like, let's find some new people, some new sounds, try something different. And then having an industry from record label executives to media to even fans who support that. We need to see something that's different and exciting for hip hop to have its place back on top and its rightful place on the top of the charts. So, what do you think about hip hop not being in the top 40 for the first time in 30 plus years? Is this something that surprises you? And what do you think is the solution? Are you someone who's optimistic that things will get better and we're going to see this creative infusion in the future? Or do you feel like this is just kind of a sign of the times and the genre has gotten too commercial and the focus has been on anything but music and on the artist? I would love to know your thoughts. Let me know in the comments.